We all know that rats are the cutest animals in the world by far. I mean, just look at my girls. But they might not be the perfect pet for everybody. Today, I'm going to talk through some of the pros and cons of rats as pets. And if you are on the fence about adopting rats, or you're considering adopting a small pet for your family, maybe this video will help you decide if they are the right fit for you, because as much as rats can make amazing pets, there are some drawbacks to them that may be unique to rats and different from other small pets. So let's jump in with the first things to know about rats. Rats are extremely social animals. And I bring this up because a lot of other small pets are not quite as interested in people, but rats, on the other hand, are very curious about humans, and oftentimes rats really want to spend a lot of time with people. So that's one of the reasons they make amazing pets. And in fact, that is the reason I personally wanted pet rats, because I've had experiences with mice and hamsters and other pets, which are all amazing in their own ways, but they're not quite as social and friendly as rats are. And my girls really like to spend time with me. Every morning they get up and they greet me at the door of the cage, and they want to get out and climb on me. So that is one of the reasons I think rats are amazing. One of the drawbacks to rats being social animals is that they do need lots of attention. Rats need a ton of attention, not just from you as a human, but they need attention from other rats. Like I said, they are social animals and they cannot live alone. In very, very, very rare circumstances can a rat live alone. They always need to be in groups. In fact, while 2 is the minimum, most rat owners would recommend owning 3 rats because rats tend to thrive in larger groups. So they need other rats to spend time with, but they also are going to require a lot of attention from you as an owner. While they will spend the majority of their time in their cage, they will need free roam time, typically an hour or more every day. Obviously, sometimes you'll have to miss a day or cut their free roam time a little bit short, but in general, rats should be getting an hour or more of free roam time outside of the cage every day, interacting with you, exploring different environments and puzzles and foraging toys and things like that. So it's important to know that they are a little bit attention intensive. The next thing I think makes rats amazing pets is that they are extremely smart. One of my favorite things to do with my rats is teach them to do little tricks. And while I'm no expert trainer by any means, I've already taught my girls how to spin, how to come to my voice, how to jump, and we're gonna get to basketball at some point, I think. I think I've got some WNBA players in my cage right now, but we're getting there on the training. They can also learn their names. They will quickly learn how to solve puzzles, and that's one of the most fun parts of owning rats, is watching them explore their environment, learn, and getting to interact with them through training. The drawback to rats being extremely smart is that they actually require lots of mental stimulation through enrichment. If you are not giving your rat enough stimulation, your rats are going to get bored, and that may cause them to act out. I've kind of touched on this in some other videos, but at one point I did not restock my cage enough with enough puzzle feeders and forms of enrichment for a couple of days, and I noticed my rats were chewing a lot more on their cage tub, and they ended up chewing a big hole in the plastic bottom of their cage, which turned into a huge disaster. So if you're not able to give your rats lots of mental stimulation, partly through free roam time, and that may include teaching them tricks during that free roam time, rats may not be the best pet for you if you don't think you're going to be able to give them the level of stimulation that they need. One of the other things that makes rats a great pet is that they actually have a relatively low space requirement. Rats typically need about 2.5 cubic feet per rat. So if you're housing 3 or 4 rats at a time, you're gonna need immediately 6 to 8 cubic feet of space. The great thing about that, though, is that rats are climbers, so they need a little bit less floor space than some other small pets and a little bit more height. Some other small animals, like guinea pigs or rabbits, need a ton of horizontal floor space. Rats, on the other hand, need a lot more vertical space, so it's a bit easier to keep them in a smaller apartment because you don't have to quite sacrifice your entire floor for your pet. You can get an amazing Critter Nation cage like this, and you can build them a little bit higher vertically and give your rats an amazing, amazing place to live without requiring a ton of your home's floor space. While that may mean that rats are a little bit easier or less space intensive than other small pets, that doesn't mean rats are cheap by any means. A lot of people make the mistake thinking that rats are cheap pets, but they're actually not, because rats are prone to a lot of illnesses that can be costly in terms of vet bills. One of my girls is really prone to upper respiratory infections, which is a very common ailment in rats. And while upper respiratory infections are not particularly expensive to treat, when they're chronic, it is all the time. That vet expense really adds up, and when they get a little bit later in life, they tend to develop a lot of lumps, tumors, abscesses, and things like that that can get really, really costly in terms of vet bills. So it's something to keep in mind if you don't quite have a ton of funds at your disposal to set aside for vet bills. Rats may not be the perfect pet for you, because while they are cheap to acquire, they are not cheap to keep healthy. You may be surprised to hear this one, but compared to some other pets, rats are surprisingly clean. What I mean when I say that rats are clean is that they spend a ton of time self-grooming or grooming each other, so their fur and their face and their paws and their mouth are actually extremely clean relative to a lot of other pets. If you think about cats and dogs, they actually tend to carry a lot more dirt, oils, and bacteria in their mouths, whereas rats, on the other hand, are extremely clean. Rats can also be trained to use a litter box just like cats, so that makes cleaning their cage a little bit easier sometimes, though of course you do have to clean their cage a lot. Rats will urinate pretty much everywhere, and when they're out of their cage, rats will scent mark by urinating a little bit as they go. So if that is a problem for you, just keep that in mind. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm totally used to it at this point, but their cage can get an ammonia smell over time, just like any other small animal. Though in my experience, rats are way less stinky than other pets like gerbils, hamsters, or guinea pigs. That's just me. Don't come at me in the comments about that. I don't want to offend any hamster or guinea pig owners. Now, I did say rats are clean, but the downside to rats is that they can be a little bit messy. I think this is part of why I identify with rats, is that I'm kind of a clean person, but I am very messy. I leave things around all the time. And so rats are a little bit the same way. They will tear up paper, cardboard, and they will kick their bedding out of their cage. So you will have to vacuum a lot around their cage and keep cleaning up after them as you go. They often will, whenever you give them a treat, they'll leave little crumbs on the floor because that's just who they are. And so you do have to keep that in mind and keep an eye on that in order to keep your space mess-free. It's just a thing with rats. They're gonna be a little bit messy. They're gonna take food and they're gonna stash it somewhere. They might even build a nest in the corner of your room. I typically free roam my rats in my room for about an hour or two every day. And every now and then I will go look in the corner of the room, and lo and behold, there is cardboard and paper and a bunch of treats over there for them that they've decided to stash away that I have to clean up. So keep that in mind. There is always cleaning involved with any small animal, and rats are no exception. Some popular small pets are nocturnal, like hamsters, which means there's very limited time for you as an owner to actually safely and healthily interact with your pet without messing up their sleep cycle. And for some, that's gonna be an issue. However, with rats, they are crepuscular, which I know is a big, weird word. If you haven't heard it, crepuscular basically means they're not nocturnal and they're not diurnal. They typically are most active at dawn and dusk. So I notice that my girls are generally awake in the morning when I get up, and whenever I get home from work in the evening, they're ready to get out of bed and have a treat and play a little bit. And then they typically are more active at night than they are during the day. For me, I work all day, so when I'm at work, they're mostly sleeping and waking up every now and then to go to the bathroom, eat a little food, dig around in their cage. The drawback to rats is that they can be noisy. Like I said, they are crepuscular, not nocturnal, but they are a lot more active at night. So every now and then I will wake up in the middle of the night, because I keep my rat's cage in my room, because they've gotten into a little bit of a fight and they've fallen or they've bumped into something in the cage and it jostles me awake. Usually this is not that much of an issue, especially if I give them ample free roam time in the evening while I'm awake. They will tend to be a little bit more tired throughout the night, so they're not quite as rambunctious in their cage, and then they get a better night's sleep and I get a better night's sleep. Believe me when I say this is not an exhaustive list of every good trait about rats. There's so many things I could talk about rats and rat ownership for days about. And in fact, I've made another video already about the positive ways rats have impacted my life, but I did want to make a video that covers some of the negatives as well. Rat ownership is not all sunshine and butterflies. There are a lot of negatives about it, but I wanted to cover this kind of evenly here. And the last thing I want to talk about is how rats really bond deeply with their owners. Rats are extremely emotional and empathetic, and they can really bond deeply with their owner. My heart rat, Lena, came to me as a feeder rescue, and I spent a lot of time one-on-one with her when she was really young before I could introduce her to my other girls. And through that experience, she bonded really closely with me, and she really loves spending a lot of time with me. And whenever I wake up in the morning, she's there waiting for me to get her out of the cage, put her on my shoulder, and go make my coffee in the morning. She loves spending as much time with me as possible. And because of that deep bond we have, it's actually really easy for me to train her because she likes spending time around me. And so I don't have to constantly be summoning her back to teach her new tricks. She typically stays pretty nearby, or she will respond when I call her name, she'll come running to me. Obviously, I love all my rats. I love all 3 of my girls, but Miss Abel in particular is a little bit more independent. She can be a little bit skittish, does not like to be held. Miss Baker is okay with being held and will ride on my shoulder a little bit, but she generally doesn't seek me out for those kinds of interactions. However, Lena does. Lena is very cuddly, and that's just her personality, and we get along in that way. That brings me to the final con about owning pet rats, which is that their lifespan is just extremely tragically short. The lifespan of a pet rat is about 1.5 to 3 years, though I would say if you are lucky enough to have a rat that survives 3 years, just count your lucky stars because that is amazing. Most rats tend to become elderly or geriatric and start slowing down around 2 years. And with a lot of rats, you'll start to see tumor development around 1.5 years. So for a lot of people, that's just not long enough for an animal that they're going to bond emotionally with. This is a common response I get in all my Instagram and TikTok videos. It's just people saying that they would love to have pet rats, but they can't handle the heartbreak. And that's just something I think everybody should be aware of. They're here for really a good time, not a long time. They're amazing animals, and they can be such great pets, but of course, they live very short lives. While they may only be in our lives for 2 years, and that might seem very short, for them, it's a full lifetime that they've had us in their lives. And if we can be a positive for them and a place of comfort and a caretaker for them for their entire life, that is a really special relationship and something that I would not give up. Of course, a lot of other small animals do live a lot longer, so if you're looking for a pet that's going to be with you for quite some time, maybe pet rats are not right for you. If you're a current pet rat owner or you've had pet rats in the past, let me know what I'm missing off this list. If I've forgotten any of the amazing pros about owning pet rats or a glaring flaw in my cons list here, put those in the comments below. I'm happy to discuss everything in all of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you want to see more from me, be sure to hit like and subscribe on this video, and you can hit my link tree below and take that to see my socials, where I post pretty much daily on Instagram and TikTok. And on this channel, I post new rat videos every week. My name is Sam, and this is Rat Pod. Thank you for watching. Adios.